Are you looking for a new whiskey adventure? Then climb in and buckle up. Get ready for one hell of a ride on the Whiskey Trip podcast with your host, Big Chief. Join in as he and his guests explore whiskey and dive into whiskey stories from around the world. Now, here's your host, Big Chief.
Hey, it's old Big Chief, and yeah, you're taking another ride on a whiskey trip, listeners and viewers out there. You know, I'm on YouTube Lad now, and I'm happy uh, th- that I'm getting some subscribers. And if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, hit that button up there. I need your numbers. I'd appreciate if you listen right to the end because I know we got something special for you at the very end. So you want to stay tuned for that. It'll be worth your while. But I'm taking a little trip down memory lane this week, and I got a special guest for you, listeners, and a special distillery. You can see right behind me, I've got Leiper's Fork Distillery with me, and I'd like to tell you about Leiper's Fork with me for a second. And I know some of you've heard this story, but one of my first on the kind of taking a whiskey trip for a distillery was to Leiper's Fork, Tennessee, and I reached out to the distillery and said, "Hey, I'd like to come out there and cut an episode," and they had me in, and I think everybody was like, "What's this guy want? What's he gonna do?" And but after that visit, they met old Big Chief, and it was like they had their new favorite teddy bear. Old teddy bear came to the distillery, and so I just built this relationship with the distillery, with the owner, with the everybody that worked there. They knew if I walked in who Big Chief was, and it's over the years that I've developed that relationship. So every time I get to go there, it's a special place for me, their family, and I've been working on this episode for months. And trying to get this lady on my show. So I got their head distiller, Kendra Anderson, with me today. Kendra, welcome to the Whiskey Trip, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Sorry to delay the episode. I'm not really as popular as it might seem. I've been kind of, busy doing 90 other things, but I've been anticipating it myself. I'm always so grateful when you ask somebody from the team to come on because we have supported you since day one. I mean, even I can remember Matt King being skeptical of podcasters and influencers,
Yeah,
and I think you have today um, that kind of sold him.
yeah.
Anybody, yep, anybody that will come say, you know what, don't know it all. I want to take this trip and go on a journey with you as a distillery. I want to learn from y'all. I want to, know everything y'all do and meet all your people. And I'm not here to sell something that I don't believe in. I'll never speak ill. Like I can remember first meeting you and just how genuine you were. And Matt was skeptical of everybody, and he's a real dude. He's a good dude. So I'm glad that however that happened, you're one of us now.
I mean, I am. I actually I have a bar set up that I take everywhere with me, and I had some different barrels for that bar, different distilleries that I've gotten barrels from. But now, the last time I visited you, you were like, "Hey, you want some
Hmm.
barrels?" And I took and refinished those barrels, and those are part of my bar now, and I cherish those. Some people were like, "Can I have those?" And I'm like, "No, you cannot
Yeah,
have my Leiper's Fork barrels. Those are mine. You'll
that's
never
right.
get them."
That's right. That's right.
So we'll really dive into Leaper's Fork, but I got a glass of whiskey, listeners, right here. You can see that bottle back there, the Revenuers Reserve. Kendra, what am I drinking on right here?
So the Revenuers Reserve, and that's what I'm doing on too. Um, so the history behind that is our master distiller and proprietor's third great uncle was a revenuer in our hometown in Williamson County. He was exceptionally well at his job. And March 7th of 1925, he was killed for being too good at his job by the Williamson County whiskey ring. So he, in celebrate his 100th year um, anniversary or death anniversary, released a 3 barrel blend of 8-year-old Tennessee and proofed it down to 100 proof for 100 years. And also, all of our flagships that we do are um, 100 proof because we're all bottled in bond. So, what this is three of our oldest will be 10 next year. So, three oldest barrels blended together to commemorate his passing.
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, it almost drinks spicier than 100 proof, I think. I would have,
It does.
I was thinking of like 110 proof. It's got some spice on it. Now, for our listeners that don't understand Tennessee whiskey too well, what is
Mhm.
the Tennessee whiskey process? What makes it Tennessee whiskey?
So, what Tennessee whiskey is all it all starts off as bourbon. Only difference is we take it one further and we send it through sugar maple charcoal filtration, also known as Lincoln County process. So all whiskey is bourbon, but only Tennessee whiskey is Tennessee whiskey. It can only be made in Tennessee. You can take the same process in Kentucky, but it's still not Tennessee whiskey.
Well, there are some people that do it up in Kentucky like that. They just
There
call theirs
are
bourbon, though.
this bourbon. Yeah, yeah. We like to be a little special.
That age old debate is Tennessee whiskey really bourbon? By law, it is, but them Tennesseans, they're very proud. Those volunteers there, they like to have something special of their own. But I wanted to point that out to our listeners and stuff. But a very beautiful whiskey, what I expect out of a Tennessee whiskey and stuff, it does cut those edges off. I love the higher proof. I love that
Hmm.
you guys are producing older whiskey, and I really cherish every bottle I get from you guys. I get these little care packages from Leiper's Fork, and I'm excited when I see them. And you pointed out before we started, you're like, you haven't even opened that other bottle yet that we're gonna drink on the second half, and I was like, I didn't because I don't know. When you have something like that, you want to cherish it and you do want to save it and respect it and make sure that I had some for the show. Because then when I open a bottle of whiskey, I want to share it with everybody. I want everybody to
Right.
taste it. I want them to experience
Hmm.
what I get to experience. Because that's what whiskey's about, right? If you have something great, why wouldn't you want to share it with your friends? Not set it on a shelf and say, "Oh, look at that pretty bottle right there that I own." No, I want to open that son of a bitch up and say, "Hey, let's take a little toot and get a little in our system and have a little fun. Tell some lies on the front porch." That's what
That's
whiskey's
right.
about right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. It is
So
all about the conversation.
let's for listeners that don't know about Leiper's Fork, how did Leiper's Fork Distillery start?
So back in, well, I mean, I guess um, back when Lee was, a teacher, um, whiskey making piqued his interest. He was making um, the whiskey in his mom's basement in the Bell Mead with a pressure cooker. But back in we opened in 2016, a couple years before that, Lee and a couple other people started lobbying legislation to um, be able to make whiskey in Williamson County again, because even though they were doing it in Coffee County and Moore County, even after Prohibition lifted, you still couldn't make it in Williamson County, and that took a couple of years to get changed and get approved. Broke ground in 2015 and laid down their first whiskey on wood in 2016. So,
And
which
that
by
was
the
a
way, we're coming up
go ahead.
on our anniversary. So we're trying to keep a couple of the older barrels so that we have, um, 10-year-old juice to put out on our 10-year birthday. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Maybe old Big Chief will get a bottle of that, or I might show up at the distillery. You never can tell where I'm gonna show up
I
at.
was
Just
gonna,
pop
I
in
can
and be like,
only
hey,
imagine how big our birthday party's gonna be. So make sure that you come on down. We're up. You're up now.
I got to come up. Yeah, I got to come up a
You
long
gotta
ways. It's
come
like
up.
I think it's 10 hour drive from here to there is what it is. But it's not
It's
bad. I can
nothing.
still make that.
No.
Nothing.
Yeah,
Nothing. Hopefully in a classic pickup. That would be my dream right there.
that would be it. That would
I'd
be
probably have to.
a trip.
I'd probably have to trailer it and then drop it off.
Park it
Yeah,
down the road and pull up in it.
yeah, something like that. So, when did you come to the distillery?
So I've been with the distillery full time. I started in November of 2019. Prior to that, I worked at the little diner in town in Leiper's Fork, and I had known Lee even prior to that, and can remember when Lee and April Cantrell and Miss Hill and different people would come in and have their meetings at the restaurant. And so once they opened, I would go periodically and work the cocktail bar at the on the front porch. It wasn't every weekend. It was very seasonal, very hit or miss. Um, and I would do some, different events that they would have, um, just different stillhouse sessions and things like that. And then in 2019, um, I had heard that they had lost their mash cook. She had went to be a truck driver again, or calling. And I hit Lee up for a job, and he tried to talk me out of it. And he's like, man, and if you've ever talked to Lee Kennedy, you know that low man, you don't want this job. It's dirty, it's hot, all the things that could deter me from wanting to work there. And I'm like, okay, so it's just work. When can I start? And, and a couple days later, as the mash cook, and I've been there. This will be sixth year in November.
So you went from making cocktails to
Hmm.
being a mash cook, and you
Hmm.
worked your way to the top. Right now is what you are. You're the head distiller there. You're making the decisions. You're making the cuts. You're deciding what barrels are blended. You're doing all that work. Could you imagine yourself going from not the bottom, but pretty close to the bottom, right, to the top of the distillery?
No, first started full time distillery. It came from a for me of one. I needed a job and I love the environment. I had actually they had done a I don't know if you remember the rye release they did in 375 bottles. There were
Mm-hmm.
5 or 6 of them. They were all different rye grain bills, and all of those labels were handwritten. And I can remember about a month before I started working there, um, on my off day from other job, I would go in with the girls and I'd handwrite labels. And I just love the environment. And I always try and work from the inside of my community out. So anytime that can be one of the businesses in our community, I'm going to gravitate to that every time. So when I started there, that's just kind of what it was. I was, starting this cool job that was really hard work, but in a great environment in my hometown. And if it was never any more than that, I was just fine with it. And shortly after I started in production, Matt King came from the tourism side of distillery production. Um, and then hit 2020 and we didn't make any week for 63 days. Then we were back on. And as soon as we came out of 2020, towards the end of that year is when we started coming off wood for the first time with our own juice. And at the time, Matt was a distiller and I was the mash cook. And I just clung to him and Lee and just, if if they were in one area talking about something, I was there to figure it out and learn. And I wanted to know all the aspects of, even if that wasn't ever my primary job. And as the years went by, Matt and I worked really well together. I became just an extension of him. And so when he left, it was actual a natural, pretty organic thing that I stepped into his role as the head distiller. And Lee is still very, very hands on. I don't make at at this stage. I tell everybody, and I'll be the first to tell anybody. There's probably going to be a smarter person in the room than me, but they're not going to outwork me. That's what I can guarantee.
Until
But
Big Chief shows up.
until Big Q shows up and brings the muscle. But that being said, I also, you'll hear me say, I don't know about whiskey, but I can make Lee Kennedy whiskey really good. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And so he says, um, a lot of control over, different things that different things that we release. It still comes downhill to me. We just started work with another blender, Sherry Moore from Daniels. She was with Jack Daniels for 31 years. If you've gotten any of our bottled and bonds in the past couple batches and the Revenuers Reserve, all blended by her. So, um, but I never set out to be the head distiller. I just set out to work really hard for a place I love and a man I respect as a boss. And this is where.
I think my first trip there, I didn't get to meet you because we got there real late in the evening, and we set up there upstairs in the tasting room.
Mm-hmm.
There's an office up above the tasting room and stuff, and I got to go up there. And then Viv and I went out and signed some barrels and did some different things there. Left with a bunch of whiskey, and I even always say when I go to the distillery, I didn't come here to take your whiskey. I came here to take your story. Is
Mm-hmm.
the way I feel. I want that story and stuff, and I wanted Kendra's story, but I don't think I met you that first time. I think met the first time I met you was you and Greg had come up to Kentucky with Matt, and we all ate tacos together, and I
We
think that was my first
that
time meeting you.
Those were the best tacos. Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, I think I met you the first time that you were there. I don't know when it was, because I remember in it, and I'm still kind of this way today. If I'm in that still house, unless you come up to me, hey, this is so and so, I've got my nose down, and
Yeah,
I am win. And so I remember when y'all came, and I remember meeting y'all kind of just in passing. But the first time that we ever sat down and had a conversation was that trip, and that's how I found out that it's Burger King.
yeah. I do love some weeded. I love weeded bourbon probably more than anybody else on the face of earth. Probably, more than people that work at Maker's Mark, and I love to try new things, and people always ask, "What are you going to drink on desert island?" And I actually gave you props the other day. Somebody said, "What's your favorite whiskey?" And I was like, "Man, there's this little distillery in Tennessee," and I was like, "The whiskey is great, but the staff makes it just that much better there because they're like a family to me." And I was like, I could walk in there, and I have walked in there several times, just almost like I own the place. But I can remember you guys had like a new tour guide, and I was walking in the steel house, and it had a rope, and I took the rope off and put it back up, and he's like, where do you think you're going? And I was like, well, I'm going back there in the steel house. And he was like, you cannot go back there. And I was like, I'm going back there, little fella.
And if you follow me, somebody else will tell you that This is fine.
I was thinking he's gonna jump on my back or something, and but Lee come out and he's like, leave him alone. That's Big Chief, and he's got free reign of the distillery, and because we were recording 3 or 4 episodes at the time, and we sat in the back of the steel house and recorded a bunch of episodes, and the funny thing about those episodes, that Leiper's Fork wasn't even one of those episodes we were recording. We recorded 2 music episodes there, and we recorded with another podcaster there. But Lee and the team you guys were just gracious and said, hey, come on in. And I think that trip we filled a barrel of whiskey there, and, they did a barrel head for us. And I'm still wondering if that barrel head is still there somewhere. That barrel whiskey is a wheated bourbon, folks.
We will
it,
be on the lookout for it.
It's
The
we need
one
to
thing that
repaint
Matt King
sucker
was
with
really
a
good
whiskey
at.
trip.
Yes, we should. We should.
Yeah, I think that'll be a special barrel, and we'll have to, listeners will, hopefully I can get my hands on that barrel and we can do a barrel pick with it, and because it's wheated bourbon, so you'd have to have the wheated king of Kentucky, make him the wheated king of Tennessee, and let's put some whiskey out there. Let's see if we can make a record sale and sell the whole barrel in less than 10 minutes. I'm sure Lee would love that.
I would love that.
Yeah, I mean that's what it is about selling whiskey and stuff. And so, as the head distiller, have you started to kind of experiment and stuff and change anything, or say, hey, I want to make a Kendra whiskey? Have you did that yet?
No, and we talk about like that. Um, for anybody that doesn't know about Leiper's Fork Distillery, we are pre-print style whiskey to a fault. Everything we do the hard way for the sake of what's best for the whiskey. So right now are just focused on our bottled and bond. We throw some experimental stuff in there. Like if we're between um, distilling seasons and we're finished with wheat and we're waiting and we have corn, we'll do some 100% corn. Or if we finish our bourbon season, we've got a lot of wheat. We'll lay down some like full distilled 100% wheat, which we have some of that coming 5 years old, I think, and that's a little odd. We did a triple distilled wheat in a cab finish that we just released through the Knox Society. That was so much better than I would have ever anticipated. Um, so we'll do experimental things just throughout the year, um, but predominantly right now we focus on our bottled and bond um, single barrels. We'll do some finishing for our the Hillsborough Society, the membership that we have. Um, I actually did a 50-50 blend for one of their bottles, but it was all like by committee. Like 5 of it did this blend, and mine got chosen to use for it. Which I'm not a person that picks up on, notes and all the things. I just know what is good to me, and I just hope that when I put it together, other people think so. Because let me tell you, that's the hardest job. We went to Kentucky and spent about 3 days with Ashley Barnes. Right before we say she broke up with us, but it was for that. She's going on to do great things. Um, but she was gracious enough to say, come on down. Let me show you how I blend your whiskey. I blend your whiskey towards,
Yeah,
that's a hard job. That is
it
a
is.
hard job.
I think it takes a very special person. I watched you guys had Jane Bowie blending your stuff
Jane
for a little bit.
Bowie.
And
We've had some
yeah,
great people blending our whiskey.
yeah, you've had some big names in the industry blending Leiper's Forks whiskey. Now you got
Little
Sherry
old
Moore,
Leiper's Fork.
a giant in the industry. She is, and I think Sherry is doing. If this she blended this right here, I'm telling you, this
Mhm.
finish on this is so long. It's just carrying some sweet notes with me, like sweet tea,
Mhm.
so a little bit of molasses. I just it sticks with me, and it makes me think of a country breakfast almost. It's just so beautiful,
Like
and
the kind you
I
have
love.
country fried steak with?
Yeah.
That kind
See,
of country
see,
breakfast?
you guys call it country fried steak up there.
I know
Us
y'all are
Texans
chicken
that
fried steak.
we invented chicken fried steak down here in the state of Texas, amongst other things. The first soda, Dr. Pepper, in America. But chicken fried steak breakfast, yeah. But that sweet molasses, because people were like, "Oh, I had syrup." Well, I had molasses when I was growing up
Mhm.
because we were poor. And it's almost it's that dark molasses or Karo syrup. It has a little. You have a brown Karo syrup, and that brown Karo syrup. And most people, if you go to a store and you're trying to make a pecan pie, that's what you got to cook it with. It's Karo syrup. Another thing us
Yes.
Texans invented was pecan pie. Uh, but this whiskey
Well,
is
we have
just
Tennessee whiskey, so
delicious.
you can have all that.
You guys stole it from Kentucky. Hold on. I didn't lay down the line now. Oh my goodness, did I say that? No, seriously. This Tennessee whiskey right here, it might be the best Tennessee whiskey I've ever had in my life right here. I gotta say, I
Well, I'm
really do enjoy it, and
flattered.
I'm glad that I savor this, and I'm gonna have to share it this weekend. I'm gonna take it to a bottle share and share my whiskey with some folks. I think they'll be greatly appreciated. You might see a review of this right here pop up, listeners. I think it deserves a review and stuff. Speaking of your Hillsborough Society, and I know Lee would want us to talk about this because that's something you guys are proud of. Tell me a little bit about the Hillsborough Society.
So the Hillsborough Society is a membership club that once you sign up for it, you get four unique expressions per year. They recently did a single barrel pick just a couple weeks ago. Um, in the past, we've done like a rum cask finish. Um, Gosh, there's been so many that I'm drunk. But in a last year we let them do a single barrel pick, and we did rye, Tennessee, and bourbon. And we let them, whichever ones they picked, they they got that bottle. So it wasn't like a majority rules kind of thing. This year when we did it, we did three of our older. I think they were all about 7-year-old Tennessee whiskey. We did a pick, and then they all pick majority one barrel. So we'll when we harvest that, they'll all get a bottle, and then another perk is any gift shop exclusive that we release, they get a email blast, give them a heads up to purchase whatever we release into shop. And twice a year they have, I think, a dinner for them. It's changed as they've kind of gone on, because we were their first distillery to do this with. It started out through our booking software, AnyRoad. Um, so that's how we hook up with them. They handle the software through for like tour bookings and retail and stat. So I think their this bottle will be the Tennessee single barrel that they picked. I'm not sure what they have for the third quarter, but every quarter it's like crisper.
Yeah, I mean I know about the whole program because they ran whenever they were Lee was discussing it. He was like, "Hey, can I call you and talk to you about this and kind of pick your brain on it and how it would go and how it would work?" And so we went through the ins and outs of it, and I thought it was a great program and stuff, especially for locals around there that can jump in there and be part of that experience, be part of Leapers Fork, Tennessee.
Hmm.
Uh, so for listeners that don't know, tell listeners kind of where is Leapers Fork at?
So we are about 40 minutes south of Nashville, just right outside of um, Franklin. Franklin would be our nearest large city. We are only 8 minutes from town, but it feels like you're 100 miles from anywhere when you're out there. And that's not just at our distillery, that's in, our little sleepy town that's, all of a 4 mile long. It just feels so moved from everywhere. In the actual town, all of the shops have, you know, um, fire pit. They all have music. They all have a place that the guests, even the retail shops can, gather and get together. Just it's just its own little community in the middle of nowhere. Um, our Hillsborough Society pays homage to what the old timers used to call um, Leiper's Fork. Leiper's Fork was originally Hillsborough. There's actually a Hillsborough, Tennessee in Coffee County. We had lost our post office back in the early 1900s, so we couldn't be included. And so I can remember growing up, our school was rural, but our local market was Leapers Fork Market. So these days, if you hear somebody call it Hillsborough, they're probably either a timer or they're generational, and they can remember that time. Now it's everybody calls it Leapers Fork.
I love it. I love that whole area and stuff. It is beautiful out there. You feel like you're 1,000 miles from nowhere.
Hmm.
It is that flyover state. It's just different there. I remember when I first drove up to the distillery. It was in the evening time. The fog was kind of setting in, and I almost could hear a banjo playing and a old hound
We
dog
hit that a
hollering on the
lot.
front porch there. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And then here comes old Tennessee Waterfall out old Lee Kennedy with his. Then he had long hair and longer beard, and I was like, God dang man, are you Billy Ray Cyrus? He was like, he didn't know what to think about me. He was like, oh my God, this guy right here, and uh, then I met Matt, and I was like, man, this is a great team right here. And then April it is like whiskey royalty. Part of the Weller family, and I fell in
Yeah,
love
how
right
we
there
made
then
it
and
so
there.
far south, I'll never know.
Well, listeners, we are right up against the first half, and on the second half, I've got a special bottle back there, but I'm waiting on to drink. And we'll pop that open. We'll talk about that finish. We'll finish up with Leaper's Fork, and we'll see what they got going on in the future. I'm sure they got something up their sleeve. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Seldom Seen Farm, bringing bourbon barrel aged maple syrup goodness from everything from pancakes to whiskey cocktails. Seldom Seen Farm in Northern Ohio has something magical for your whiskey cocktails instead of that old basic simple syrup. Kevin Holey and his family are harvesting the sap from over their 5,000 maple trees and turning it into something delicious, maple syrup. He then goes a step further by aging in bourbon barrels for 6 to 9 months. That's right, bourbon barrel aged maple syrup. Shh, don't tell Miss Viv, but I love to pour it over my buttered pecan ice cream. Visit them at seldomseenmaple.com. All right, listeners, we're back for the second half, and I got Miss Kendra Anderson here, and she's with Leiper's Fork Distillery in Leiper's Fork, Tennessee, that sweet southern town there, about 40 miles south of Nashville. If you're going to travel to Nashville and you have a car to go around, you want to drive down Leiper's Fork, you want to go to the distillery, you want to go to Puckett's, you want to experience the beauty of this small, charming town. And I will guarantee you, once that whiskey hits your lips, uh, you're going to understand why I love this little distillery so much. Now, Kendra, you guys sent me this special bottle right here, and it's taken every piece of myself not to open it up and taste this, because this has got some of that little Tennessee bee in it, right?
Hmm. I would tell you what the boss said, but I'm not sure the rating of your show. But it
It's
literally
dirty.
has.
I got dirty rating.
It has the because we are purists. I think that we were all kind of on the fence about doing a, a honey bourbon. We've done like mask finishes and things along that line. Um, but we've never really, delved into anything like this. And um, we have um, some honeybees on our property. We have some on our property. And Greenwood Honey Company oversees and manages them, and so they took after one of our dumps, which we do 10-barrel blends. So after one of our bourbon dumps, they took two of our spent barrels and they put um, what they call a honey mash to it, which was, Lee says, everything from bee's knees to assholes. I mean, everything was in that. And they even have the breakdown. Looking at the bottle, they have a breakdown of the pollens, the what the mash, the honey mash grain bill was, and all these particular things. And one of the biggest roadblocks was trying to figure out a way to filter this whiskey to our standards of clarity, but do not filter out integrity of what was important to them, which was to be able to keep the blend and all of the goodness that bee nerds know about that I don't, and I say that in arm.
Bee
So
nerds.
if you hold that bottle up and you kind of shake it around, it's got a sense of cloudiness to it that as purists, we're all like, oh my goodness, you know, what is this? But it's just the stuff that we compromise, not sacrificing. So it went through a different filtration system so that we didn't strip all of that out of it. And I think if you compare it to any other honey bourbon on the market, you will find down this is a product of what you get when whiskey purists and people that are passionate about their bees collaborate, and the end result is something that can't be recreated by just finishing whiskey in a barrel drenched in honey. It's just totally different.
It is. It's got. I'll read the mash bill for the whiskey first. Is, and I love this right here. Is 70%
I know you
corn,
do.
18% wheat, or 15% wheat and 15% malted barley, and then it's got a mash bill for the honey, folks, and pretty special here. 29% willow, 25% sweet clover, 14% blackberry. Yeah, and blackberry bushes over there. We got some of those down here. And then they got this poison on here. They got 8% sumac. Uh, so sumac is it'll make you itch a little bit, but I guess it makes good good honey.
It
And
pollinates
and
well, I hear.
yeah, this is it's 96.3 proof. This has got 513 bottles, and I've got
Yep.
one of these bottles. It's 411, 4 years old, 4 years 10 months old whiskey in here, and pretty damn special bottle. And then I shook it up, and I wish I would have shook it up before I poured it. And I don't know if everybody can see, but it does
Super
really
hazy.
have, yeah,
Hmm.
hazy, and some people might not like that. I love it. Um, I actually talked to the beekeeper a couple months ago before this project, right when it's kind of being dreamed up, because Lee was like, "You got to talk to this guy," and so I started talking to him and learning about him and stuff. And that's when I was like, I got to have Kendra come on here and talk about this and get a bottle of this in my hands. And so I ended up with a bottle of it, and you know, I cherish my Leiper's Forks bottles, and I love to share it though, folks, because I think they have Leiper's Fork. You guys got a cult following for your rye whiskey. People love it.
We
They
do.
line up for it. I remember being at the distillery one morning, and I was picking up a barrel pick from there of a honey barrel, not a honey barrel like that, but a honey barrel, and that other people had passed on, and we sold a lot of the bottles already. And a guy he was pulling up there, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "I'm picking up a barrel pick," and he was like, "Well, I'm here for a rye barrel pick. Is that it?" And I was like, "Nah, I got weeded bourbon." And he's like, "Well, I'm here for rye," but he bought 2 bottles right then and there from me. He was like, "How do I buy that if you liked it so much?" And it turns out that the bottle barrel release, this is how badly he wanted. He drove 2.5 hours on the wrong Saturday to get his barrel pick of your rye. And it was wrong, but he still left with. He bought 2 bottles of. Because I had a bottle of it open. And I was like, "You want to try it?" And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "This is a pretty damn good barrel right here." And I was like, "Well, God dang, I can't even think of her name right now. Man, why am I drawing a blank on this?" Somebody
April?
else had Bourbon Women had passed this barrel
Oh.
over. They didn't
Oh,
want
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I ended up with a barrel of it, and we sold every bottle. A lot of
Yep.
it went down to
I
New
remember that.
Orleans to the
I
police
think it was like
department down there,
barrel
and
446 or something.
yeah, yeah, amazing a barrel of whiskey. And folks, this is how I am. I had a bunch of. I was at a festival up in Kentucky where people were able to buy this barrel pick, and I had a bunch of the whiskey in my trailer behind our booth. And Leiper's Fork was in my booth with me. And somehow somebody might have came by and grabbed a bottle they weren't supposed to grab. But I get all the way down to Texas, and I'm trying to people that bought barrel bottles and stuff. I'm trying to pass them out and stuff, and I ended up not even getting a bottle of my own barrel pick. But that I'm honest to a fault. You sometimes you don't end up with a bottle, even though I wanted it so bad. I had a little sample of it. That's all I had because Lee, whenever we picked barrels out of the barrels, I got sent a bunch of samples of different barrels and stuff, and I was like, "Hey, this is the barrel I want." And but that's all I had of it, and I think I still have like this much of it. So, but I cherish any Leiper's Fork whiskey I get. I still have a bottle of the Matt made up with me with a crown on, and we
With the
Key of
crown.
Kentucky.
That's when we came to see you
Yeah,
in Kentucky. That's so funny.
yeah.
He like decorated the bottle and made a big deal out of it. He was so good at that though. He was good about that. Um so
He's good about relationship building,
he
and I feel like
he
all of you
really
guys
is. Hmm.
are good about relationship building and stuff. And to this day, me and Matt are great friends. He's been on the whiskey trip a couple times. He's actually one of few very people that I invited back and said, "Hey, would you like to come back on the show and sit down with me and talk about whiskey?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'd love to." Every time I talk to him or we text each other about our dreams or about his daughter getting bit by a dog or
Or his
anything,
new
we just,
little baby.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my
We
gosh.
just,
That
we have just that relationship with each other. Same thing with Lee, the same thing with you. Me and you can talk
hmm
about cars. You're a gearhead. A lot of people might not know that
I
about you.
am.
You got a
I
couple of little
am.
hot rods. Drive an old
And I
wagon,
love
right?
them all. An old wagon. Her name is Roxanne.
Roxanne. You,
Roxanne.
and you drive her to work every morning, right?
Every day. Every day. I rotate from um, my 60 Parkwood wagon. Today I drove my 54 five window Chevy, and then I have a little 41950 Chevy Deluxe, which I think I did a little promo video with, his name is Sneaky Pete because he's so quiet. But I think I did a promo video using Sneaky Pete I think when you first started the whiskey trip.
Yeah, that's when I come up there to get that barrel pick, and I stayed with April
Mm-hmm.
Weller Cantrell over to her house for a couple of days and just hung
Yep.
around and cut a promo. So if you want to check that promo out, it's still on Instagram and on Facebook and stuff. Of Kendra being a badass and helping me out and loading barrels in my truck and loading cases and cases of whiskey in our trailer, and
You
who drives
loaded
down the road
up
like
that
that.
day.
I did. I ended up coming back with Texas like 5 barrels, empty barrels, and cases and cases and cases of whiskey from Tennessee and Kentucky, and I really did. That was a monster whiskey trip because I think Viv and I went to on that trip. We went to 9 different distilleries to do cut episodes, and just had cut an episode over at April's house. I don't know why I didn't record with her. Maybe she just didn't feel like it. But Ben Cole is a friend of the distillery. I
Mhm.
recorded an episode with him about hunting and drinking whiskey together, and was
He's
kind of
great.
shocked by him. He thought he could drink whiskey. He's drinking with a big boy, and he's a big man himself.
Right.
Uh,
And he's a big man. He is a
yeah,
big
yeah.
man indeed, for sure.
He done ran up
For
against old
I think
old Ted.
at the end of this episode, we should do a who wore it best with our headings. Have you seen the Hollywood
Who what?
celebrities do that? Who wore it best?
Hell, I don't know. I've been wearing these things for a long time now.
They're pretty comfortable.
I got a little dent in the top of my head. So Kendra, what's coming up for? You was talking about some releases and stuff you guys are doing. The 10-year anniversary. What are you guys going to do that 2026, right? Or are you guys going to do something pretty special for that?
Will be 10. We're definitely going to put out um, some sort of 10-year blend to some capacity. I don't know how big that will be based on what we have left of, those 10-year-old barrels. I can anticipate a pretty good birthday party if I'm speaking out of turn. But on the immediate down the road, our Franklin location should be opening hopefully within a couple of weeks of June. So that is a Main Street location. If you've ever been to Leiper's Fork and you love it, you will love downtown Franklin, the Main Street area. Um, Back in my day, we used to cruise. That's cruise town in all of our cool cars. But now it's much more refined than that, and it's the sweetest downtown area. But we have a cocktail bar. Um, it's not a full-on restaurant, but cocktail bar, restaurant, and a distilling lab in the back of it that you can see from any area in the building. We hired a guy named Sterling who's going to be our distiller down on Main Street. And he's going to work off of a gallon still, doing a lot of like experimental stuff. He'll do meat, he'll do brandies. He'll work hand in hand with that bar and components of it that they need within the capacity that he has to make for it. So that will be opening in the next weeks. I think we're actually going to do another release of the Revenuers Reserve. We pulled out of that in just a couple of months, and that was only sold out of our front door. So I think we're going to do another release of that here in the next couple of months. We've got a couple of good single barrel hitting our retail space. We have a 5-year-old, almost 5-year-old Tennessee double oak that we limited amount of number that we're gonna to the retail space. Um, but other than that, we're just kind of gearing up. We're growing, so we're making some needed upgrades out in production with unitation tanks and just things that help us keep up with ourselves as we open the doors at Maine's going to put a bigger demand on us as a whole. So we're kind of gearing up for that. We have a cigar night that we do that's great following. You can um, look our website. It gives you more details. I think it's the last Friday of every month. We do cask finish that's only available on the in person. Our head tour guide, Paul Bissett, who is a wealth of knowledge, he may have been the one that checked on that day. I'm not sure. But it's something that was kind of, this is kind of his baby, that he was given the reins to do, to hold a cigar night. We always have somebody hand rolling cigars on that evening, and it's just in our courtyard with our cocktail bar, and it's of an evening, so it's not as hot. It's a really good time. It started with probably, you know, 20 or 30. I think the last one he had probably over 100 guests come to, because it's just such a nice evening. I mean, tell me better than cigars, whiskey, and great conversation. I mean, that's kind
Uh,
of what
Probably not a
we
better
do for
night unless you
men.
put some food into it.
They do have
Then
food trucks. They do have food trucks, so that's always a plus. Other than that, we're open. On the weekends we have food trucks and music, and um, it's just a great place to be.
I mean, I love it. I love everything about Leiper's Fork, and I want everybody to experience the whiskey from Leiper's Fork. So before we get off here, uh, I will tell everybody that Kendra has been gracious enough to let's do a giveaway in some of their weeded bourbon, folks. The Weed King Kentucky would have to give out away some Tennessee bourbon. So they're gracious enough. We're going to give away a bottle of weeded bourbon and one of their baseball caps from Leiper's Fork. So what you're going to have to do to get this bottle, though, on the day of the episode, which is this Tuesday you're listening right now, you're going to have to follow the Whiskey Trip on Facebook. You'll have to follow Leiper's Fork on Facebook, and then in the comments, you'll have to like the post, but also in the comments, you'll have to post a photo of one of your bottle shares. And when I talk about bottle shares, if you've had buddies over and did a whiskey share, girlfriends over, whoever you've had over and shared whiskey with, we want to see those photos of whiskey that you've shared, and then I'll pick a winner from that. The next week, we'll let it run for an entire week. The next Monday, we'll pick a winner from it, and you'll be able to share that bottle of weeded bourbon at your next bottle share. I think that's a pretty badass giveaway right there. It helps Sleepers Fork out to get more people to drink their whiskey in your community. I want everybody to experience what I've got to experience. That's why I do the whiskey trip, folks, is so you can experience what I'm getting to experience, what I get to taste. And I would tell you, if you get to go down there, tell them old Big Chief sent you, that the whiskey trip, you heard about them, you listened to Kendra. I guarantee you, you're not going to be disappointed. It is like stepping back in time a little bit. They got a dog run cabin
Hmm.
that's their tasting room. They've got a post and beam steel house that will blow your mind. They got an old pot still back there from Vendome that has a big gooseneck on it. That the gooseneck is at a certain angle. They'll tell you about that. And then they got these old cypress fermentation tanks that barely anybody uses anymore. They can
Mm.
be cantankerous,
Yes.
but you want to go in there and check this distillery out, and you want to meet Miss Kendra right here, see your hot rod out there. Kendra, in the next couple weeks, are you going to be doing anything at any festivals or anything?
Uh, April, and I just finished the Southern Sky Whiskey and Music Festival in Knoxville. Um, can't think. I don't personally have anything going on. Oh. So if you love women in whiskey, while we're talking, on May 30th, um, we are having a women working whiskey event at the distillery. Um, there's going to be myself, it'll be Devin Walden from Big Machine, it'll be Sherry Moore. There's three or four women that I just can't even think of who they are, but they are very, very known in industry and for who they're with. That's going to be May 31st, I think 6. There's cocktail hour. There's small bites and a panel discussion. You can go to our website or our social media and find out all the details. So that we have that coming up. Then if you just check up on our website and our social medias, they do a pretty good job of keeping everything out there for people to come and see us in.
Well, I mean, I love it. And I'll tell you the women that'll be there. I'm gonna help you out. I shouldn't,
Good,
but I
because I
will.
didn't want to like look down like you are. So help a sister
I
out.
hate to look down. I
You know
people
I've
have
been
been getting on me
drinking.
about that. So Miss Sherry Moore, she used to be at Jack Daniels, and now she has her own consulting firm. She blends your guys' whiskey.
Hmm.
Lisa Henley from Sazerac House there in Tennessee. Wendy Purvich, like you said. And then you got Amy and Paige from Doc Brown. And then you got Devin, I can't say her last, from Big Machine.
Devin
And
Walden.
you got
Yep,
Amy, yep. Amy from Hiram Walker will be
I
there.
can't say her last
And then you
name.
got, I was going to try, but I can't do it. I'll mess it up,
Don't
listeners.
do it.
You know me,
It's
my old hill
me.
country accent. And then you got this little bitty lady from Leiper's Fork, the head distiller there, Kendra. And then you had one of my other guests from my show that's been on my show, Miss Karen Locke from the Tennessee Whiskey Trail. She will be there as well. Folks, you don't want to miss this. You don't want to. I think it's a great event, May 30th. What's the cost? Is there any cost to this event?
You know what? I'm an outside cat, so I don't really know the all bills. But go to our website. I'm sure there is a link somewhere.
$50, folks. $50. You can
$50.
afford $50 for a great even with a
It's a
bunch
good
of women.
time. That's
If
right.
you don't
It is a
if
good
you don't
time.
have a girlfriend, guys out there, you might find you a whiskey woman at this thing. I'm just telling you, it's worth
Guys
the
are welcome
$50.
too.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. They might find a new wife there.
I mean, you might. Whiskey does wonders.
It does. Well, oh my goodness, it does do wonders for sure. It did a wonder on me tonight for sure. Well, so where can our listeners find you guys on social media?
So, with Facebook at Leiper's Fork Distillery, we are on Instagram at LF Distillery.
Well, Kendra, I want to say thank you so much for taking this ride on the whiskey trip and helping promote Leiper's Fork whiskey, Leiper's Fork, Tennessee, the distillery, everything that's beautiful about that region, especially yourself. I want people to experience you and what I've got to experience. What a wonderful woman you are. What a wonderful person. And you've made my life better in the past and in the future, I'm sure, because we're always going to be friends. So, any last words for our listeners out there?
No, I just want to thank you for having me here again in my new position. Encourage anybody if you come out. Um, the weekends are great, but if you want Loki and you want the opportunity to kind of see us in our element and doing all the grit that makes our whiskey so fantastic, Wednesday through Friday. That's when production runs Monday through Friday. We're open for tours now Wednesday through Sunday. So if you come Wednesday through Friday, you'll get to see um, the things that people that make us what we are. Because at the end of the day, we just love what we do. We love doing it the hard way because once you ever taste Leiper's Fork Distillery, you'll get it. It's such an easy sell as long as you try it.
Yeah, you gotta try it for sure. Well, once again, thank you so
Yeah.
much, listeners. I didn't tell you that I have had Kendra on a show in the past, and I did a women in whiskey episode one time with 4 different women. And if you can find that video, you'll see old Big Chief and 4 women get drunk together for sure. It was
We
one hell
did.
of a
I
night.
kept losing my earbud. My family was texting me. I think I had been
Oh,
there. I had this at the distillery for like 6 months, less than a year. I didn't have very much time under my belt at all. And there was a I'll never forget that can bring down to a molecular level. And I'm like, hi.
we had a great time on that show, and
Good time.
you know, I'd love to get back to doing some shows like that, lives and stuff.
Mhm.
And I still think they'll be fun and stuff. But listeners, you stick with me. Make sure you enter this giveaway for a bottle of Leiper's Fork weeded bourbon and one of their ball caps. Like I said, you got to follow Leiper's Fork. You got to follow the Whiskey Trip on Facebook. You got to like the post, and you have to comment with a photo of one of your bottle shares. It's that simple. You got to reside in the United States, and you got to be 21 years of age. It can't get any easier than that. I think it's a great giveaway. We're going to let that run for a week. I'll be giving away at 6 p.m. on Facebook on a live, so you pay attention to see if you won. And we'll see who can win this thing with a beautiful photo of doing their bottle shares. As I always say, folks, if you listen to me, make sure you listen to Mark and Matt from the Bourbon Life. Hit that subscribe button on Apple. We're bringing you great content. Make sure you leave me that 5-star review on Facebook. I'd really appreciate those. Those reviews open up doors to distilleries like Leiper's Fork Distillery and get great guests on my show like Miss Kendra Anderson. Uh, I want to bring you great content. I want to bring you the rest of the story. I want to drag that story out of the distillery, or as I like to say, bring you the rest of the dram. So keep doing those reviews, and I'm going to keep putting out content for you. I love doing this. I love bringing you stories and giving you entertainment for that long drive to work and that long drive home. Uh, the more you give me, the more I'm going to give back. Just like we're trying to do these giveaways. Enter them. It is real. The giveaway is real. I'm not trying to scam anybody. All you got to do is follow the rules, and you'll get real whiskey in your hand. There's several
You'll be
folks
so
out there
glad you
that
did.
will. Yes, ma'am. So follow me every week. I got 2 episodes coming up. One with a Pennsylvania distiller, and then one with a Kentucky distiller. You don't want to miss those episodes. Check out my YouTube channel. I'm on all social media platforms. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and now YouTube. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. Leave comments, leave likes. Those help build my community and get more people to listen to my content. So just keep listening. I'll probably be at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival in the fall, but that's a long ways away. So we'll talk about that later on. So thanks for listening today. Thanks for watching on YouTube. This is old Big Chief, and thanks for taking this ride with me.